My wife cheated on me with a guy from her office, then while I was away for just one night, she went and changed the locks on our house. When I tried to get back in, she called the cops and told them I was some kind of threat. Hey folks, name's Jake. I'm 36, just a regular guy trying to keep it together. Honestly, writing this isn't easy, but I feel like I've got to let it out somewhere, just to clear my head a bit. This whole mess started about 9 months ago. One day flipped everything upside down. I got back from a business trip earlier than planned. I'd wrapped things up quicker than expected, figured I'd do something nice and surprise my wife, Megan, she's 34. But the only surprise that day was for me, and not the good kind. When I stepped inside, the house felt unusually quiet. I dropped my bags in the hallway and headed to the study. Megan usually worked from home on Fridays, so I wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary. Her work laptop was sitting open on the desk. That alone was strange, she normally guarded that thing like it was classified. She always said it had sensitive client stuff on it. Just as I was walking closer, a message popped up on the screen. It was from someone named Travis. The preview read, "Last night was amazing. Can't believe we finally did it. Derek place next week. Travis. 29 years old, part of her team at work. She supervised him." My heart dropped. I felt like the ground disappeared from under me. I shouldn't have done it, but I needed to know the truth. So, I clicked the message. That screen turned into a nightmare. What I found was months of messages, one after another. At first, it looked like regular work chatter, harmless, maybe. But then things took a turn. The messages got flirty, way too personal. Compliments, jokes, little inside things that clearly weren't just about spreadsheets. Pretty soon, they were flat out talking about where they'd meet up, which hotels, what time, even how close they came to getting caught. There were confirmation emails for hotel bookings. And then, the pictures. Photos of them together, intimate stuff. Some in hotel rooms, some taken right inside my car. The one I drive every day. I felt sick to my stomach. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone as I took photos of everything on that screen. She must have left the laptop open thinking I wouldn't be home till the next day. Maybe she was just careless, or maybe she was that sure I'd never find out. Megan and I had been together 6 years, married for 3. I really thought things were solid between us, not perfect, but good. Sure, we had our arguments. Who doesn't? Megan could be short-tempered, sometimes even a little dramatic. If her food order was off at a restaurant, she wouldn't just politely ask for a correction, she'd raise her voice, make a scene. Back then, I told myself she was just particular, maybe a bit of a perfectionist. Looking back now, I see those were warning signs. I just chose to ignore them. Never in a million years did I think she'd cheat. I admired how driven she was, and I put up with her outbursts, chalking them up to her passionate side. I sat there in that chair, staring at those messages and pictures like they were burned into my eyes. Then I heard her car pull into the driveway. She came in a few minutes later, humming to herself like it was just another Friday. Then she saw me and stopped cold. "Jake. You're home early," she said, way too cheerful, like she was covering something up. Her eyes looked surprised, but also nervous. I didn't dance around it. "Who's Travis from marketing, Megan?" Her fake smile slipped. "He's just someone I work with. A junior guy on my team." "Why?" She acted casual, but she wouldn't look me in the eye. She kept glancing around like she was trying to figure out what I knew. "Are you sleeping with him?" I asked, staring right at her. She laughed, loud and forced. "Seriously, Jake? That's what you think? Just because I work with the guy?" She shook her head, started walking past me. "You're being paranoid." I held up my phone. On the screen was a photo, her and Travis, lying in a hotel bed, smiling like it was a vacation. Her face turned white, then flushed red with anger. "You went through my work laptop," she yelled. "That's my private property. You had no right. You're cheating on me, sneaking around, sending him pictures, and you're upset that I saw it?" I fired back. She didn't even try to deny it at that point. Just got more defensive. "So what if I did?" she snapped. "What are you gonna do, Jake? Maybe if you weren't so boring all the time, maybe if you actually paid attention to me instead of messing around with your little hobbies, I wouldn't have needed something more." Her words hit like a punch to the gut. She started pacing around, her voice rising with every step. Suddenly, everything was my fault, according to her. I was controlling, I didn't care about her, I held her back. Then she spotted a porcelain vase on the shelf. It was a gift from my late Aunt Nancy, someone I loved deeply. Before I could move, she grabbed it and threw it against the wall. "This is your fault," she screamed as it shattered into pieces. "Everything is always your fault." I looked at the broken vase. Then I looked at her. Something inside me broke. "Get out," I said quietly, but firmly. "I want you out of this house." The house wasn't just some place we bought together. It was mine, left to me by my Aunt Nancy. Filled with her memories. Megan knew how much it meant to me. "You can't throw me out," she yelled, her face twisted in disbelief. "I live here too. This is my home." "Not anymore," I told her. "Pack a bag. I want you gone tonight." She flat out refused. The fight dragged on for hours. She kept flipping between screaming at me, then crying about how Travis didn't mean anything, then back to blaming me for everything. At one point, while she was yelling, she grabbed a heavy glass paperweight from the desk. She raised it like she was going to hurl it at me, or my computer. I threw up my hands, thinking she might actually do it. Instead, she slammed it down on the desk, right next to her laptop. Then she picked up a letter opener and scratched her forearm a few times. Nothing deep, just enough to draw blood. "Look what you're making me do," she cried, holding up her arm. "You're driving me crazy." I was stunned. The whole thing felt unreal, like I didn't know who she was anymore. I wasn't going to get physical. I wouldn't. But I was done. I was tired, angry, and honestly. I was scared of what she might do next. I told her I was going to spend the night at my buddy Derek's place. I needed time to think, to breathe, and let things settle down. I told her when I came back the next day, I wanted her to either have a plan to move out, or already be gone. That turned out to be a huge mistake. Walking out that night and leaving her in my house. Biggest mistake I could have made. I spent the night on Derek's couch, barely got a wink of sleep. He listened to everything, let me vent, and agreed, Megan had gone way over the line. The next afternoon, around 3, I drove back to the house. Derek came along, mostly for backup but also just to be there in case things got ugly. When I stuck my key in the lock, it didn't turn. I tried again. Still nothing. She'd changed the locks. I just stood there for a second, stunned. I couldn't believe the nerve. I started knocking, loud, and shouting her name. After a few long minutes, she finally cracked the door open, but the chain was still on. She had this smug, almost victorious look on her face. "Can I help you?" she said like I was some stranger at her door. "Let me in, Megan. This is my house, you know that." "Not according to my lawyer," she said, calm as can be, holding up a piece of paper through the crack. I saw some kind of legal letterhead. I filed for an emergency protection order and claimed residency. "You left, Jake. You abandoned the home. I'm staying, and you're not allowed near me." I was floored. In less than a day, she'd locked me out, called a lawyer, filed legal paperwork, and was now trying to flip the script like I was the threat here. Derek tried talking to her through the door, told her this was insane, but she just smiled and slammed it shut. We barely had time to figure out our next move when a police cruiser pulled up. Megan had called them, said I was trying to break in, said I'd threatened her before, complete lies, and that she was scared for her safety. The officers listened to both sides, well, mine in person, hers through the door. They were respectful, but the message was clear: she was my wife, she claimed to be afraid of me, and she had established residence. That was enough, legally, to keep me out unless I wanted to risk getting arrested for trespassing or domestic disturbance. One of them actually said, "Sir, for your own good, I'd recommend you walk away and let the courts handle this." So there I was, locked out of my own house, treated like the problem, while she stood inside behind a curtain, watching it all play out. First thing I did was get on the phone with a divorce lawyer. I laid out everything. He didn't sugarcoat it. Said this was going to be a rough ride. Megan had come out swinging, and from what I told him, he believed she'd try to take everything she could. Proving the house was mine, an inheritance, would need proper documentation. And those abuse claims? Even if they were bogus, they'd complicate everything. So that's where I'm at now. Still talking to the lawyer, still trying to get my head on straight. And honestly, I'm lost. I had a long talk with my sister, Lily. She's not a divorce attorney, she's in corporate law, but she's smart, tough, and incredibly loyal. She's known Megan since the beginning, and while she never liked her much, said she seemed high maintenance and a little self-absorbed, she admitted she never expected this kind of cruelty. Lily brought up a dinner we hosted about 2 years ago. A friend accidentally spilled wine on a new rug, and Megan completely lost it, made the entire night uncomfortable. Lily pulled me aside back then and told me Megan needed to chill. I brushed it off, blamed it on stress. Lily says now she wishes she'd pushed harder. She's been a rock. She offered to look over any legal documents I get, help me screen lawyers, the works. Even outside her area, she's been incredibly helpful. Then she said something that really stuck with me. Megan's following a classic manipulator's playbook, she said. The rage, the drama, the legal ambush, the self-harm, all of it is designed to throw you off balance and control the narrative. Don't give her that power. Stay calm, document everything, and let your lawyer do their job. That helped me see things more clearly. What I thought were random explosions were actually tactics, calculated moves to gain control. But if that wasn't enough, her parents, Helen and Frank, decided to chime in. They called me several times. Helen did most of the talking. She launched into this long speech about how all marriages have rough patches, and how I, as the man, needed to be more understanding of Megan's passionate and impulsive side. Then she had the audacity to try and spin Megan's affair. Said Travis was probably just a young guy dazzled by Megan's confidence, and maybe she just blurred some lines while mentoring him. That's how she put it, blurred lines. She actually said, "Jake, darling, Megan's a very sensitive girl. You leaving like that, even just for one night, it must have scared her. You know how much she loves that house. It's her safe place." Then she told me I should let Megan stay there, for now, so we could work through this. She even threw in a forgive and forget and said it was the Christian thing to do. I told her about the vase, how Megan smashed one of the few things I had from my late aunt, and how she then cut her arm and blamed me for it. Helen just sighed and said, "Oh, Megan's always been a little dramatic. She gets that from her father's side. She didn't mean anything by it." Unbelievable. They're just things, Jake. They can be replaced. But a marriage? That's precious. That was Helen again, laying it on thick. Frank, Megan's dad, normally the quiet one, just mumbled something about how fragile Megan was right now and said I needed to be the bigger person, show some compassion. They didn't care about what actually happened, just Megan's feelings, her version of events, her comfort. That call made one thing crystal clear: Megan didn't just come up with her entitlement and zero accountability overnight. She was raised in it. They even threw in a veiled warning, something about how things could get unpleasant if I made this harder than it needed to be. Given how often they've bailed her out of trouble in the past, I took that as a hint, either legal threats, financial interference, or both. Since the divorce papers were served and she got the official notice to vacate the house, something her lawyer is fighting, of course, Megan's behavior has gone off the rails. I blocked her main number, but she's been using burner apps and new phone numbers to keep calling and texting. The voicemails are all over the place. One moment she's sobbing, saying she made a huge mistake, that Travis meant nothing, and begging me to come home. Next message, or sometimes even halfway through the same one, she's screaming at me, calling me every name in the book, threatening to ruin my career, swearing I'll never get the house, that she'll take me down and tell the world I'm an abusive monster. And it's not just the phone calls. She showed up at Derek's place late one night, after 11 p.m. somehow managed to sneak in behind someone entering the building. She started pounding on his door, screaming for me to come out and face her. Derek, who's a solid friend but not exactly confrontational, looked completely rattled. He called me, and I told him to get building security right away. They came and escorted her out. He said she looked completely unhinged, screaming that I had her emotional support documents locked inside Derek's apartment, which makes no sense at all. Then came the smear campaign. A woman named Nicole, more of an acquaintance than a friend, definitely closer to Megan, called me under the pretense of being supportive. But it quickly became clear she was fishing. Said Megan told everyone I had been cheating on her for months, that I was emotionally cold and cruel, and that her brief lapse in judgment with Travis was just a cry for help because I was so neglectful and verbally abusive. She's spinning herself as the victim of a cold, heartless husband, and unfortunately, some people are buying it, especially the ones who don't know me well or are easily swayed by her dramatics. But the worst was last week. I needed to get a few essentials from the house, important paperwork, my work laptop, and medication. My lawyer arranged for a court-sanctioned civil standby, so 2 officers accompanied me to keep the peace. Megan was there, naturally. And the second she saw me walk in with the officers, she went into full performance mode. Clutched her stomach, stumbled, and dropped to the floor, wailing like she was in a soap opera. Screaming that she was pregnant with my baby and that the stress I was causing was making her miscarry. I couldn't even react. I just stood there in disbelief. We hadn't been intimate for months, long before I ever found out about Travis. There was no way I was the father of any baby she claimed to be carrying. The officers looked uncomfortable, no idea how to respond. One of them, a younger female cop, gently asked if Megan needed an ambulance. Suddenly, the dramatics eased up just enough for Megan to wave her off and say she'd be okay. But then, right in front of the officers, she turned to me with pure venom in her eyes and said, "He doesn't care about our baby. He wants this to happen." It was disgusting. A blatant, manipulative lie designed to get a reaction and discredit me in front of law enforcement. I gathered my stuff as quickly as I could. Just as I was walking out the front door, she muttered under her breath, loud enough for both officers to hear, "You'll pay for this, Jake. I'll make sure you lose everything, you bastard." The cops documented it, thankfully. My lawyer said that kind of threat, especially in front of police, could be important later. Lily keeps telling me the same thing, no contact. Period. Everything goes through the lawyers. Every voicemail, every text, every third-party report, save it, document it, catalog it. The more erratic and hostile she gets, the more it helps build a case against her in court. This isn't just drama, it's a clear pattern of harassment and manipulation. But even knowing all that, it's exhausting. Every day feels like I'm walking through a minefield. I never know what's coming next, another fake accusation, a late-night scene, a call to one of my friends or family members trying to poison them against me. I don't even recognize the woman I married anymore. That person is long gone. What's left is someone I can only describe as vicious and unpredictable, like she's hellbent on destroying me just because I won't play along with her fantasy anymore. Looking back, the signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. Turns out, Megan was a lot more reckless than I ever imagined. Overconfident, too, like she believed she was untouchable. From what I've gathered through her laptop messages and what one of her old coworkers finally confessed to my lawyer, after wrestling with guilt, Megan wasn't just casually sneaking around, she was orchestrating the whole thing. Travis, her direct report, was clearly smitten, and naive. She used her position to blur every line possible. Most of their meetups were disguised as team building or strategy sessions after hours. And she was always the one initiating things. She leveraged her authority to get him alone, made it all sound like part of his professional development. And Travis? He was too caught up in the attention to realize how deep he was in. Or maybe he did, but didn't care. Travis was still pretty new to the company, and the city, which made him easy to influence. According to one of Megan's old co-workers, she would intentionally pair him with projects that meant staying late. Then she'd casually suggest grabbing a drink afterward to unwind, which, of course, turned into something more. And this wasn't occasional, it was happening at least twice a week for months. They had their routine down. Favored a certain mid-range hotel chain, usually close to their office, but sometimes they'd venture out a bit farther. Turns out, Megan had opened up a separate credit card under her name, sent straight to her work address. That card was used strictly for the hotel rooms and little gifts for Travis. I had no clue it even existed. She always had a reason for being gone, tight deadlines at work, late meetings, networking events, team dinners that were supposedly just for employees. Nothing I was ever invited to. That same coworker said Travis, whether because he was cocky or just clueless, would drop subtle hints to others about his special bond with a certain senior manager. People started to suspect something was up, but no one said a word. Megan had a reputation for blowing up and holding grudges, and nobody wanted to be in her crosshairs. She didn't stop at after-hours affairs, either. She actually took Travis on a business trip, said it was for client development in another city. Total lie. It was just a romantic weekend. And she had the nerve to expense most of it. Meals, a rental car, said hers was in the shop, and even concert tickets, all marked down as client entertainment. That level of boldness eventually came back to bite her. After I filed for divorce and word started getting around about the affair and her unpredictable behavior, partly from her own public breakdowns, partly from office gossip, her company launched an internal investigation. She ended up getting fired for gross misconduct and misusing company funds. Naturally, in her mind, I ruined her career. She accused me of spreading lies, of deliberately sabotaging her. Now, about Megan's family background, because it's relevant, and honestly, it explains a lot. Helen and Frank, her parents, built this entire bubble around Megan. She's their only child, and they raised her like the sun rose and set for her alone. Lily, my lawyer, even picked up on it over the years. Megan was never told no, never held responsible for anything she did wrong. If she failed a test, it was the teacher's fault. If she lost a game, it was because someone cheated or the rules were unfair. They're well off, not insanely rich, but comfortable. They have enough money and enough local influence to clean up messes. I remember Helen once bragged, about how, during Megan's first year of college, she got caught red-handed plagiarizing a major term paper. There was clear proof, and she was facing expulsion. Instead of letting her face the consequences, Helen and Frank immediately hired a top-tier education attorney. They threatened the school with a big lawsuit, throwing around accusations of bias and procedural misconduct. The school caved. Megan was allowed to quietly withdraw from the course without any academic penalty. The plagiarism charge just disappeared. That moment taught Megan something dangerous: consequences are optional, as long as you yell loud enough or threaten legal action. And she's carried that mindset into adulthood, and into our marriage. Even before I knew about the affair, we had issues. Our arguments never followed any kind of healthy pattern. If she felt criticized, she wouldn't talk it out, she'd shut down or go nuclear. The silent treatment could last for days. Or she'd accuse me of not loving her, of being emotionally distant, then threaten to leave, sometimes even pack a bag, waiting for me to beg her to stay. And I always did. There were worse moments, too. I remember arguments over the dumbest things, like me wanting a quiet night at home instead of going out. She'd go into full meltdown mode. Start hyperventilating like she couldn't breathe. Once, she lightly started banging her head against the wall, crying that I was making her sick. I used to think she was genuinely fragile. I'd drop everything, apologize, even if I hadn't done anything wrong, and just try to calm her down. Looking back now, it's terrifying how clear it all seems. Those weren't cries for help. They were power plays. She was showing me how far she was willing to go to get her way, and that she'd make me feel like the villain for resisting. She sees people the same way she sees things, something to own. The house, for example, is legally mine. I inherited it. But in her head, it became hers the moment she moved in. Just like me. I wasn't her partner, I was her property. And the affair? It wasn't just some reckless fling. It was about power. She had control over Travis, he was under her thumb, professionally and personally. And she had control over me, by living a double life right under my nose. Exposing her, calling her out, kicking her out of her house, that shattered the narrative she built around herself. And she couldn't stand it. The worst part? Her parents are still in her corner. They know about the affair. They've heard about the meltdown at Derek's, the police reports, everything. But they still prop her up, telling her I'm the one being unreasonable. That I'm vindictive. That I'm trying to take everything from her. It's like she lives in an alternate universe, and they're her cheerleaders. That kind of blind loyalty. It makes any kind of honest resolution impossible. There's no middle ground with someone who believes they're never wrong, and who has a family echoing that back to her every single day. Court was every bit as brutal as my lawyer warned it would be. Megan and her legal team came out swinging, trying to flip the narrative completely. Their whole strategy was to paint me as some cold, controlling, borderline abusive husband. And Megan? She put on a full-blown show, tears, quivering voice, the whole performance like she was up for an award. She claimed I was emotionally distant and financially manipulative, even though we had bank records clearly showing she had her own solid income and full access to our joint accounts, which she used, frequently and extravagantly. She tried to twist the affair, saying I only discovered her friendship with Travis as a made-up excuse to kick her out of the house so I could sell it and keep all the profit. She even tried to claim she'd put a big chunk of her premarital savings into fixing up the house. But when we asked for proof, there was nothing. Not a single receipt. Our forensic accountant picked that lie apart without breaking a sweat. Thankfully, my lawyer was methodical. He countered every one of their claims with documents, bank statements, emails, testimony from folks like Derek who saw firsthand how Megan treated me and how she spent. Lily, my sister, testified too. She spoke calmly about Megan's long history of financial recklessness and her general attitude. Oh, and remember that stunt Megan pulled when I went to grab my stuff and she suddenly claimed she was pregnant? That blew up in her face during discovery. My lawyer asked for basic medical documentation, doctor visits, ultrasound reports, anything at all. She couldn't provide a shred of proof. Then her lawyer tried to pass it off as a pseudocyesis, a fake pregnancy caused by stress I had supposedly inflicted on her. The judge wasn't buying it. His face said it all. That lie pretty much torpedoed her credibility right from the start. Megan didn't stop with the fake pregnancy. In court, when my lawyer was laying out hard evidence, credit card bills for hotel stays, flight itineraries, gifts, she suddenly jumped up, yelling that he was twisting everything. She screamed, "He's a liar. I'm the victim here," and even started marching toward the judge's bench before the bailiff stepped in and shut her down. Another day, when Travis was subpoenaed to testify, he looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, but he showed up. And under oath, he started confirming everything. That the affair was real. That Megan was the one who pursued him. That she'd even threatened him to keep quiet. Megan exploded. Called him a pathetic, lying traitor and a spineless coward right there in court. The judge gave her a formal warning, one more outburst and she'd be removed. Now, the fight over my aunt's house. That was the ugliest part. My aunt's will was clear. I inherited that house before we were married, and the deed was in my name. But Megan's lawyer tried to argue she was entitled to a big chunk of its value, saying she'd put in sweat equity and made non-financial contributions. We brought in forensic accountants again. They tracked every dollar tied to the house, mortgage payments, which were almost done when I inherited it, taxes, repairs, insurance, all paid from my premarital savings or income one earned myself. Megan hadn't contributed anything financially, and we proved it. A big turning point came when her parents, Helen and Frank, were deposed. They tried to prop up Megan's version of events, but my lawyer's questions cut through fast. Their stories didn't match up. It became clear how much they'd enabled her over the years, never holding her accountable, always rushing in to clean up her messes. Helen, under pressure, got flustered and even snippy, accusing my lawyer of bullying her. Frank looked like he wanted to disappear, kept dodging questions or acting like he didn't remember anything. Instead of helping Megan, their testimony just painted a picture of a spoiled woman raised by parents who never told her no. After that, Megan's lawyer seemed to realize they were losing ground. His tone shifted. Not as aggressive. A little more restrained. Finally, after months of back and forth, delays, most of them dragged out by Megan's side, the judge gave his final ruling a few weeks ago. The divorce was granted on grounds of irreconcilable differences, but the judge made a point to note that Megan's infidelity was a key factor. Best part? He confirmed the house was mine, entirely and without question. She wasn't awarded a dime of equity or interest in it. It was a massive relief. I can't even describe it. In his summary, the judge called out Megan's false accusations, her attempts to manipulate the process, especially the fake pregnancy, and her courtroom meltdowns. He said her behavior seriously damaged her credibility. She was ordered to vacate the property within 20 days. The day she moved out was tense, to put it mildly. On my lawyer's advice, I arranged for a civil standby. 2 officers came by to make sure things didn't spiral. Megan didn't say much, but her mood said it all. Sullen, bitter, radiating pure hostility. She didn't say a word to me that day. Not once. But she made sure to drag things out to the bitter end, taking up every single second of the time she was allowed. Moved like molasses, slow, deliberate, and clearly doing it just to get under my skin. After she finally left, I found a few spiteful little parting gifts. There were some deep, intentional scratches gouged into the hardwood floor in the master bedroom. In the study, behind where a bookshelf used to sit, she'd scribbled something crude and childish in permanent marker on the wall, hidden, but not hidden enough. And a few of my personal things had gone missing. Nothing worth much money, but they meant something to me. Stuff with sentimental value. It wasn't enough to take back to court, but it was obvious what it was, her final little tantrum. Her way of leaving one last fingerprint on a mess she created. As the officers told her it was time to go, she didn't even glance my way. But as she stepped out the door, she turned to one of them and said, loud enough for me to hear, "He'll regret this. People like him always get what's coming." The officer didn't flinch. Just gave a short nod and saw her off the property. The only part that still rubs me the wrong way is the financial settlement. It's not nearly what she was after, but it still stings. Since she lost her job, something she brought on herself after the affair and the fallout, she managed to convince the court she had no income and needed help getting back on her feet. So, the judge ordered temporary spousal support. 16 months. A modest amount, but still something I have to pay. My lawyer said that's just how it works in our state. The court doesn't factor in bad behavior unless it's criminal, and transitional support is common when one spouse is out of work or earning significantly less. Still, writing that check every month is a bitter pill. After all she put me through, knowing that money is going to her, it grates. But at the same time, it's a small price to pay for getting my life back. And believe me, I'm counting the days until those payments stop. Now I'm slowly working on reclaiming my space, and myself. First thing I did was have a locksmith come out and install brand new high-security locks on every door. It's symbolic, sure, but it also felt necessary. Like I was finally shutting the door on everything that happened. The house is quiet now. Almost too quiet at times. But it's a peaceful kind of quiet. The kind that doesn't come with tension or walking on eggshells. What we had didn't just fall apart, it went down in flames, all because Megan couldn't own up to anything she did and chose to torch everything instead.